Nangs are cartridges of nitrous oxide or laughing gas, typically administered by dentists as a form of anaesthetic. It's perfectly legal to purchase these cartridges as they're used as an aerosol propellant in whipped cream canisters, but the law is silent on their recreational use. So before we look at whether they're safe, I want to find out just how easy it is to buy them.
On the ning nang nong, where the cows go bong and the monkeys all say boo.
There's a nong nang ning where the trees go ping and the teapots jibber jabber joo.
Okay, so that was surprisingly easy. So now that I've got my nangs, I want to talk to someone with a bit more experience who can show me how they're used. Undine, you are a Nang enthusiast. Would you be able to show me how Nangs work in terms of like loading them up? Like I've got my Nangs here.
All right, well, this is a Nanginator.
Yes.
There's other versions of these that are bigger. There's also things called crackers, which are about this big, that are specifically for Nangs. This is whipped cream.
Okay.
So basically, jumping the gun, is you're going to pop it in with the little nub side on the outside. And you're going to use your muscles and get it cracked really tight. When you hear it like letting go into the canister, that means you've cracked it. And then you're basically letting it go into the balloon with the little trigger here.
Wow. Okay.
Like that.
That is very fast.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And then from there you'd inhale it.
Yes.
And
so the way you do it safely is that you inhale it in and out of the balloon a few times, and then you just kind of try to get it all into your lungs, and then you just let it happen.
Can you describe what it's like?
Nangs are dissociative, so what happens is you kind of get this really, really intense dizziness, but it's a really good dizziness. So your vision goes a bit warped and sound kind of reverbs like around the space, and it's just like, it's this real kind of like a bit of a vortex is how I feel. Like you go into a bit of a vortex and then you come back out of it. It only lasts for about 15 seconds.
From what I've read, there was a report by the Australian Medical Journal that said that you can have long-term complications to your central nervous system, discoordination, things like that later on down the track. What do you think about that?
Like, it's understandable that the oxygen deprivation does cause damage, but as long as you are taking them properly and not in excessive amounts, it shouldn't ever really be a problem. I think the best thing to do is if you're in a party situation, is to be doing them with people or have someone there who's not doing them while you do one, just to kind of make sure everything's all right.
Now that I've spoken to someone on the inside, I think it could be useful to complement Undine's perspective by chatting to Professor Ross McPherson. He's a senior specialist in anaesthesia at Royal North Shore Hospital and can explain to us on a medical level what happens to someone's body when they inhale a Nang.
When you inhale a gas like nitrous oxide, obviously it goes from your lungs into the bloodstream, and the main organ that it works on obviously is the brain. And once it gets there, by, again, mechanisms we don't fully understand, it causes a degree of loss of consciousness, and if you then do something painful like remove a tooth or have a baby, it reduces the pain associated with that. It only lasts for a matter of seconds. Like basically when you inhale it, it has this effect, and within 2 or 3 breaths that's gone.
Are there any long-term effects of inhaling nitrous oxide?
Strangely enough, it can interfere with the metabolism of certain vitamins, particularly vitamin B12 and folate. It's possible to end up with severe vitamin deficiency from that, and it can actually cause a form of damage to the spinal cord, which is usually reversible.
Now, in a recreational context, considering that these gases are used by dentists and medical professionals, it would seem that in small doses and with infrequent use that there aren't the significant harms. Would you agree with that?
In terms of long-term toxicity, you're probably right. I mean, I'm not an expert in terms of how people actually use it recreationally, but in terms of long-term damage, we're talking about someone who would be inhaling it for possibly 10, 15, 20 minutes a day for 3 or 4 days a week for a number of weeks. They're the ones that could get into strife.
What would you say to people who are considering using this in a non-medical context?
When you're breathing in the nitrous oxide, you're not breathing in any oxygen. So you are becoming hypoxic for that period of time. You're not inhaling any oxygen or a minimal amount of oxygen. So the risk of hypoxia or lack of oxygen to something like the brain is significant but unknown. The second thing is that the risk of damage to yourself because you become unconscious and fall over, and if your airway is obstructed for any means, it means that you can be lying on the ground and trying to breathe but not be able to.
And what advice would you give to people who are choosing to do this so that they can avoid those immediate harms?
Having someone around the place who knows what's going on, who's prepared to look after you, being in an environment where you're less likely to have harm if you fall down, like to already be on the floor, I guess, when you were doing it, would be safer than standing or sitting up. Nextly, because of the risk of regurgitation when you become unconscious of stomach contents, it'd be particularly dangerous to take anything that makes you unconscious on a full stomach.
I've come to the understanding through chatting to Ondine and Professor McPherson, as well as doing my own research, that nangs aren't necessarily always dangerous, but they absolutely can be. So use your common sense. So hopefully now you have a better understanding of why grown adults are carrying around balloons and can make an informed and safe decision.
Everybody, it's a ning nang